The story of the Dassault Mirage III begins in the uncertain years of the early Cold War, when France sought to rebuild its national defense industry after the devastation of the Second World War. Having lost ground in aircraft development during the conflict and reliant on foreign designs in its immediate aftermath, France recognized that independence in aviation technology was essential to maintain strategic sovereignty. The emergence of jet propulsion and the prospect of nuclear-armed adversaries underscored the urgency for a modern, supersonic interceptor capable of defending French skies against high-speed bombers and reconnaissance aircraft. The French government issued a requirement in 1953 for a lightweight interceptor capable of Mach 1.3 performance, rapid climb, and armed with air-to-air missiles. Meeting this challenge fell to Avions Marcel Dassault, already known for pioneering post-war jet aircraft such as the Ouragan and Mystère. At the heart of the effort was Marcel Dassault himself, whose design philosophy emphasized simplicity, adaptability, and a focus on aerodynamic innovation. Together with chief engineers, Dassault sought to push beyond conventional swept-wing configurations toward new aerodynamic solutions that could withstand the demands of sustained supersonic flight. Initial concepts centered around swept-wing interceptors, but wind tunnel testing soon revealed the advantages of the delta wing for high-speed performance. This triangular planform promised structural simplicity, large internal volume for fuel, and excellent supersonic stability, though it came with challenges in low-speed handling and maneuverability. Dassault's engineers accepted these trade-offs, convinced that the delta wing represented the optimal solution for the supersonic era. This decision placed France at the forefront of aerodynamic experimentation alongside other pioneering nations. The prototype that emerged, initially designated MD.5550, embodied these design principles. It featured a tailless delta wing, a single-engine layout, and provision for a powerful afterburner. Its compact structure aimed to balance the need for high speed with ease of production and maintenance. To improve climb performance, Dassault's team experimented with auxiliary rocket boosters to augment jet thrust during interception missions, an unusual feature that highlighted the exploratory nature of early supersonic design. Despite budgetary pressures and the technical uncertainties of delta wing flight, the French government maintained its commitment to the program. National pride was at stake as France sought to demonstrate that it could match or surpass the achievements of Britain, the United States, and the Soviet Union in the new jet age. The Mirage program thus became not only an engineering challenge but also a symbol of French independence in defense policy and industrial capability. By the mid-1950s, Dassault had refined the Mirage design to the point where it could be considered for production. The aircraft's name, Mirage, captured the essence of a machine designed to appear suddenly at high speed, intercept intruders, and vanish just as quickly. It reflected both the futuristic image of delta-wing aircraft and the strategic purpose of the program, to defend France with speed, precision, and technological innovation. In this way, the Mirage III's origins lay at the intersection of national necessity, bold aerodynamic experimentation, and the determination of Dassault to place France among the leading aerospace powers. What began as a government requirement for a supersonic interceptor would soon evolve into one of the most iconic jet fighters of the 20th century, a design that combined elegance with combat effectiveness, and that would go on to serve across continents for decades. The prototype phase of the Mirage III began with the MD.50 Mystère Delta, a research aircraft built to validate the radical aerodynamic concepts that Dassault had chosen. The first flight took place on 25 June 1955, powered by a single Attar 101G turbojet engine supplemented by two small SFR-66 rocket motors. This unusual combination was intended to achieve the rapid climb rates demanded by the French Air Force, simulating the conditions of high-altitude interception. Early flights confirmed that the delta wing delivered exceptional stability at high speeds and provided a clean aerodynamic profile suitable for supersonic flight. However, they also revealed the predictable challenges of such a configuration: high landing speeds, reduced maneuverability at low altitude, and heavy control forces during certain flight regimes. To refine the design, Dassault built the Mirage War, a scaled-down prototype intended to explore performance potential with less complexity. This aircraft managed to exceed Mach 1.3 in level flight, demonstrating the basic soundness of the delta wing concept. Yet the French Air Force considered the airframe too small to meet operational requirements, as its internal volume could not carry sufficient fuel or weapons for realistic missions. The lessons learned from the Mirage 1, however, provided invaluable data for scaling up to a full-size fighter design. The breakthrough came with the Mirage 3 prototype, which flew for the first time on 17 November 1956. Powered by the SNECMA ATAR 101G engine and equipped with provisions for the CPAR 841 rocket booster, the Mirage III immediately demonstrated its potential. In October 1958, a modified Mirage 3A prototype became the first European aircraft to exceed Mach 2 in level flight, reaching Mach 2.2 during test runs. This achievement placed France firmly among the world's leaders in supersonic aviation, and proved that the Mirage could meet or exceed the performance of contemporary American and Soviet designs. The test program was not without setbacks. Early engines suffered from reliability problems, and integrating the rocket booster posed difficulties in terms of safety and maintenance. Test pilots also had to adjust to the high approach speeds required for landing, which initially resulted in long rollouts and occasional runway overruns. Nevertheless, with incremental improvements, the aircraft matured into a stable and predictable supersonic platform. Avionics and weapons testing were equally important. The French Air Force intended the Mirage III to be an all-weather interceptor, so engineers integrated the Cyrano radar system into the nose of the aircraft. This gave it the ability to guide radar-homing missiles, complementing its infrared-guided weapons. During trials, the Mirage successfully launched and guided Matra missiles, confirming its capability as a modern interceptor suited for the nuclear-armed strategic environment of the late 1950s. By 1960, the Mirage III had entered pre-production status, with the Mirage 3C variant selected for service as the French Air Force's first supersonic fighter. The transition from prototype to production highlighted Dassault's talent for turning experimental technology into practical, operational designs. The aircraft combined raw speed, climb performance, and missile capability in a package that could be produced efficiently and adapted to multiple roles. The prototype and testing era of the Mirage III thus marked a decisive transformation. What began as a speculative delta-wing experiment became a proven Mach 2 interceptor, capable of defending national airspace and providing France with an independent, world-class fighter. It was during this period that the Mirage moved from theoretical innovation to tangible reality, setting the stage for its entry into service and the long combat career that would secure its place as one of the defining fighters of the jet age. The Mirage III entered frontline service with the French Air Force in 1961, marking the arrival of France's first truly supersonic combat aircraft. The initial operational model, the Mirage 3C, was designed as a pure interceptor, equipped with the Cyrano Ibis radar, two 30mm DIFA cannons, and provisions for air-to-air missiles such as the Matra R-FAB-30 and AIM-9 Sidewinder. It also retained the option of a liquid-fueled rocket booster to achieve rapid climb rates, though this feature was seldom used in practice due to complexity and safety concerns. Deployment of the Mirage 3C into frontline squadrons represented a major leap in capability for the French Air Force. Pilots trained intensively to master the delta-wing handling characteristics, which differed significantly from the swept-wing fighters they were accustomed to. The aircraft's high landing speed demanded precision and discipline, but once mastered, the Mirage proved both predictable and responsive. At supersonic speeds, its stability and climb performance impressed aircrews, confirming its role as a fast, high-altitude interceptor. Operational doctrine in France initially emphasized the Mirage's nuclear strike role alongside its air defense duties. The Mirage III was fitted with hardpoints for carrying the AN-52 nuclear bomb, making it a key component of France's independent nuclear deterrent. This dual capability reflected the strategic realities of the time, when the French government under President Charles de Gaulle sought to ensure autonomy from NATO and maintain a self-reliant deterrent force. The Mirage thus became not only a frontline fighter, but also a political instrument of national independence. In everyday operations, however, the Mirage III's role focused on quick reaction alert duties. Squadrons stationed across France maintained aircraft and pilots on standby, ready to scramble at short notice to intercept unidentified intruders. Exercises and patrols tested the Mirage's ability to climb rapidly and engage high-altitude bombers, and the aircraft consistently demonstrated that it could meet the performance requirements of the Cold War era. The delta wing design, while imposing certain limits on sustained turning combat, provided excellent acceleration and speed, allowing Mirage pilots to dictate the terms of engagements. The Mirage III's early years also coincided with growing interest from abroad. The aircraft's Mach 2 capability, compact size, and adaptable design attracted attention from air forces seeking a modern but affordable supersonic fighter. Export models began to take shape, even as French units were still adapting to the type. This international appeal soon led to production for multiple foreign customers, ensuring that the Mirage III would become not just a national interceptor, but an international symbol of French aerospace engineering. Reactions from French pilots and commanders were generally positive despite the aircraft's demanding landing characteristics and limited endurance compared to larger contemporaries. They praised its climb rate, missile integration, and radar performance, which gave them confidence that the Mirage could defend national airspace against any likely intruder of the early 1960s. The aircraft's ability to integrate advanced weapons and electronics also meant it could evolve with technological changes, laying the foundation for a long career. By the mid-1960s, the Mirage III had fully established itself in French service. It was the centerpiece of the nation's air defense, a critical part of its nuclear deterrent, and an emerging export success. Its entry into service marked the transition of France from a nation dependent on foreign fighters to one that fielded one of the world's leading supersonic aircraft. For the French Air Force, the Mirage III was more than just a new fighter. It was a defining step into the modern jet age, a machine that blended speed, technology, and strategic utility into a single platform. The Mirage III's combat record began almost as soon as it entered service, with international operators placing it on the front lines of Cold War conflicts and regional wars. Unlike many supersonic interceptors of its generation, the Mirage quickly proved itself in live combat, demonstrating adaptability as both an interceptor and a multi-role fighter. Its operational use became one of the defining elements of its legacy, setting it apart from contemporaries that remained largely confined to training and deterrence. The first nation to test the Mirage III in combat was Israel. In 1961, Israel became the first export customer for the Mirage III, purchasing the Mirage III CJ variant, tailored for air superiority missions. By 1967, these aircraft formed the backbone of the Israeli Air Force during the Six-Day War. On the morning of 5th of June 1967, Mirages spearheaded Operation Focus, Israel's preemptive strike on Egyptian airfields. Flying low-level penetration missions, they struck airbases with bombs and cannon fire, destroying dozens of enemy aircraft on the ground. Once air superiority had been established, Mirages shifted to interception and dogfighting roles. During the conflict, Israeli Mirage pilots scored the majority of Israel's air-to-air victories, claiming over 40 Arab aircraft in air combat, including MiG-21s, which were the Soviet Union's most advanced fighters at the time. The Mirage III again proved decisive during the War of Attrition, 1969-1970, and the Yom Kippur War of 1973. Israeli Mirages clashed repeatedly with Egyptian and Syrian MiG-21s, often engaging in high-speed dogfights over the Sinai and Golan Heights. Although outnumbered, the combination of the Mirage's speed, climb rate, and missile armament, paired with Israeli tactics, allowed it to remain competitive against Soviet-built opponents. However, by 1973, the Mirage began to show limitations in endurance and payload compared to newer designs, leading Israel to gradually supplement it with the domestically developed Kfir and American F-4 Phantom II. Elsewhere, the Mirage III saw combat with Pakistan during the 1971 Indo-Pakistani War. Pakistani Mirage IIIs, including strike-oriented Mirage 5 variants, flew missions against Indian targets, conducting both bombing and interception operations. They proved valuable in deep strike missions thanks to their speed and ability to deliver precision attacks, though Indian MiGs and Sukhois presented formidable opposition. In South America, the Mirage III became the frontline fighter for both Argentina and Brazil. Argentine Mirage the 30As and Israeli-built Nesher aircraft, derived from the Mirage, formed the spearhead of Argentina's air defense during the Falklands War of 1982. Although their impact was limited by distance, endurance issues, and British Sea Harriers' advanced radar and missile systems, the Argentine Mirages nonetheless carried out several interceptions and defensive patrols over the mainland. The war highlighted the limitations of delta-wing fighters with short range when operating far from base, but it also demonstrated the Mirage's enduring role as a symbol of national defense. South African Mirages saw extensive combat during the Border War, 1966-1989, flying ground attack and interception missions against insurgent groups and Cuban-flown MiG-21s in Angola. Although often constrained by the political environment, South African Mirage III pilots credited the aircraft with providing reliable and effective performance in one of the longest low-intensity conflicts of the Cold War. Through these varied conflicts, the Mirage III demonstrated remarkable flexibility. Designed as a high-altitude interceptor, it proved equally capable as a ground attack platform, reconnaissance aircraft, and dogfighter. Its combat record against the MiG-21 cemented its reputation as one of the few Western fighters of the 1960s able to consistently hold its own against Soviet designs in real-world combat. At the same time, its operational use exposed its limitations: short range, restricted payload capacity, and lack of advanced avionics compared to later fighters. Nevertheless, the Mirage III's adaptability ensured that it remained relevant across decades of combat. From the deserts of the Middle East to the skies of South Asia and the Southern Atlantic, it established itself as one of the most widely used and battle-proven fighters of the Cold War era, embodying Dassault's design philosophy of simplicity, speed, and flexibility. The Mirage III's long service life was sustained by a steady process of modernization and the introduction of numerous variants tailored to specific missions and export requirements. What began as a single-role interceptor in the Mirage III-C quickly evolved into a wide family of fighters, strike aircraft, reconnaissance platforms, and trainers, each reflecting both the adaptability of Dassault's delta-wing design and the diverse needs of international customers. The French Air Force itself received several key variants. The Mirage III-C was the first operational version, optimized for air defense with radar and missile capability. Soon after came the Mirage III-E, introduced in the early 1960s as a true multi-role fighter. Equipped with improved avionics, navigation systems, and greater fuel capacity, the III-E extended the Mirage's role from pure interception to ground attack and reconnaissance. The Mirage III-R followed, a dedicated reconnaissance version with cameras replacing radar, providing France with a fast, supersonic platform for photographic intelligence missions. The Mirage V represented one of the most significant evolutionary steps. Developed at Israel's request and delivered in 1967, it stripped away much of the Mirage III's radar and avionics to create a simpler, more cost-effective strike aircraft with enhanced payload capacity and range. After France embargoed the delivery of some Mirage 5s to Israel in the wake of the Six-Day War, the type nonetheless became a global export success. It was built in large numbers for multiple nations, including Belgium, Switzerland, Argentina, and Pakistan, where it served as a versatile fighter bomber well into the late 20th century. Trainer versions, such as the Mirage 3B, were also introduced, featuring a second cockpit in place of some avionics. These dual-control aircraft were critical for preparing pilots to handle the Mirage's delta-wing characteristics, particularly its high landing speeds and unique approach profile. While unarmed in most cases, the trainers ensured that air forces could transition smoothly to frontline variants. Export models proliferated widely, each tailored to local requirements. Switzerland and Australia built their own Mirages under license, with the Swiss Mirage III-S featuring structural reinforcements and compatibility with American missiles, while Australia's Mirage III-IO became the Royal Australian Air Force's primary fighter for nearly 2 decades. South Africa's Mirage III-CZ fleet formed the backbone of its air defense during the Cold War, while Argentina and Chile operated Mirage III-E variants in South America. In every region, the Mirage proved adaptable to different climates, doctrines, and political contexts. Variants continued to evolve technologically. The Mirage III-E platform was upgraded with Doppler navigation, improved radar, and compatibility with advanced weapon systems, ensuring relevance as missile technology advanced. The Mirage III-R introduced new reconnaissance equipment, including infrared cameras and later electronic intelligence sensors. The Mirage 5, meanwhile, spawned further developments, including Pakistan's ROSE, Retrofit of Strike Element program, which modernized avionics and weapons integration well into the 1990s. The Mirage family also formed the foundation for the Mirage F1 and later Mirage 2000, which carried forward Dassault's emphasis on versatility, export potential, and aerodynamic innovation. In many ways, the Mirage III established the modular, evolutionary design philosophy that became a hallmark of Dassault aircraft. In total, over 1,400 Mirage IIIs, 5s, and derivatives were produced, serving in more than 20 air forces worldwide. Each variant demonstrated a balance between advanced performance and adaptability, ensuring that the Mirage remained relevant across multiple decades of technological change. The transformation from the Mirage 3EC interceptor into a family of multi-role fighters, strike aircraft, and reconnaissance platforms highlights how Dassault's original design was far more than a single aircraft. It was the basis for one of the most successful and influential fighter families of the jet age. The global impact and legacy of the Dassault Mirage III were profound, extending far beyond its role as France's first supersonic fighter. More than any other aircraft of its generation, the Mirage III symbolized the rise of France as an independent aerospace power and became one of the most widely exported Western fighters of the Cold War, leaving an enduring mark on both military aviation and international politics. For France, the Mirage III was a cornerstone of national defense strategy throughout the 1960s and 1970s. It provided the French Air Force with a credible Mach 2 interceptor capable of countering Soviet bombers and fighters, and it also carried the nation's first tactical nuclear weapons, ensuring France could pursue its policy of strategic autonomy. In this sense, the Mirage III was not simply a military tool, but a political statement. France would defend its airspace and its nuclear deterrent independently of NATO, relying on its own industry and engineering. The aircraft thus became a centerpiece of President Charles de Gaulle's vision of sovereignty. Internationally, the Mirage III achieved remarkable export success. Nations across Europe, the Middle East, South America, Africa, and Asia acquired the type, either directly from Dassault or through licensed production. Australia built over 100 Mirage III-Os domestically, making them the backbone of the Royal Australian Air Force for nearly 2 decades. Switzerland produced its own Mirage III-S fleet, tailored for alpine operations with American missiles and reinforced structures. Argentina, Chile, Brazil, and Venezuela all operated Mirages in South America, where they became the first supersonic fighters in the region. In the Middle East, Israel, Egypt, and later Libya employed them in combat, while in South Asia, Pakistan relied heavily on Mirage IIIs and Vs in its long-standing rivalry with India. By the late Cold War, the Mirage III family had flown in the service of more than 20 air forces, a reach rivaled only by American fighters like the F-5 and F-104. The Mirage's combat record further enhanced its reputation. Israeli successes against MiG-21s in the 1967 Six-Day War gave the aircraft legendary status and demonstrated its effectiveness in real-world dogfighting. These victories, widely reported, influenced global perceptions of Western delta-wing fighters and boosted export interest. Even in conflicts where the Mirage faced challenges, such as the Falklands War of 1982 or South African operations in Angola, it proved durable, adaptable, and respected by adversaries. Few fighters of its generation could claim such a broad and sustained combat history. Technologically, the Mirage III left an important legacy in aircraft design. Its clean delta wing demonstrated the practicality of the configuration for supersonic fighters, influencing not only later Dassault aircraft like the Mirage 2000, but also designs in other countries. Its modular approach to variants and upgrades established a model that Dassault would refine in future programs, allowing customers to adapt aircraft for local missions without losing core performance. Culturally and symbolically, the Mirage III became an icon of the jet age. In France, it embodied national pride, technological independence, and the credibility of the country's defense policy. Abroad, it often represented the first step for smaller nations into the world of supersonic aviation, giving them prestige and deterrent capability in regional conflicts. Its distinctive silhouette became instantly recognizable, a visual shorthand for Cold War air power across continents. Today, retired Mirages can be found in aviation museums around the world, from Paris to Canberra, Buenos Aires to Tel Aviv. Some continue to fly in private hands in training roles, testament to the robustness of their design. Historians and enthusiasts regard the Mirage 3 as one of the most successful fighters of its era, a machine that balanced affordability, versatility, and high performance in a way that few rivals matched. In sum, the Dassault Mirage 3's global impact cannot be measured merely in production numbers or combat victories. Its true legacy lies in how it reshaped perceptions of what a medium-sized nation could achieve in aerospace, how it empowered dozens of air forces worldwide, and how it established a design lineage that influenced jet fighters for decades. It was and remains a genuine legend of the jet age. Beyond its well-documented frontline service and export success, the Dassault Mirage 3 also had a series of lesser-known chapters that illustrate how adaptable the platform was and how it became a testbed for experimentation and innovation. These hidden stories reveal the aircraft's versatility beyond its role as a supersonic fighter and ground attack aircraft, highlighting its contributions to research, specialized missions, and unexpected uses. One of the most unusual features of the early Mirage 3 was its integration with rocket propulsion. The Mirage 3C was initially designed with the option of carrying a CPR-841 liquid-fueled rocket booster in the rear fuselage, giving it an extraordinary rate of climb for high-altitude interceptions. In practice, the system proved logistically difficult and was rarely used outside of testing, but it demonstrated Dassault's willingness to explore unconventional solutions to meet Cold War demands for rapid interception of high-flying bombers. Another lesser-known role of the Mirage 3 was in reconnaissance. The Mirage 3R and 3RD variants replaced the nose-mounted radar with a suite of photographic and infrared cameras, turning the fighter into a supersonic intelligence-gathering platform. These aircraft flew routine reconnaissance missions during the Cold War, mapping borders, monitoring naval activity, and providing imagery for strategic planning. In Israel and South Africa, Mirage reconnaissance aircraft played critical roles in regional conflicts, often flying deep into contested airspace at high speed to evade interception. Several Mirage 3s were also used as dedicated research platforms. In France, prototypes tested advanced avionics, radar systems, and electronic countermeasures that later appeared on newer Dassault designs such as the Mirage F1 and Mirage 2000. The Mirage G swing wing program of the late 1960s drew heavily on Mirage 3 components and engineering lessons, even though it never entered production. In Switzerland, Mirage 3S airframes were modified to evaluate hardened structures and American missile integration, making them unique within the Mirage family. Export operators sometimes created their own unusual modifications. Pakistan's extensive Mirage fleet was progressively modernized under the ROSE, retrofit of strike element program in the 1990s, which equipped the aging fighters with new avionics, radars, and precision-guided munitions capability. This extended the service life of Mirage 3s and Mirage 5s well into the 21st century, long after most of the world had retired them. In Argentina, Mirages were adapted for long-range strike and air defense missions, and several remained in service until 2015, making them some of the last operational Delta Wing fighters of their generation. Some Mirages even ended up far from combat. Retired examples were sold to private firms for use as training aircraft, particularly in the United States, where they were flown as aggressor aircraft in mock combat against modern fighters. Others were converted into testbeds for drone control systems and advanced radar trials, reflecting their usefulness even decades after their initial introduction. There were also projects that never moved beyond the experimental stage. Dassault studied two-seat Mirage 3 interceptors with larger radars, carrier-capable versions for the French Navy, and even more ambitious modifications to turn the aircraft into a long-range strike platform. Most of these remained prototypes or paper projects, but they underscored the versatility of the Mirage airframe and its potential for adaptation. Veterans who flew the Mirage 3 often remarked that it was a demanding but trustworthy aircraft. Its Delta Wing required discipline during landings and high-G maneuvers, but pilots valued its raw speed, climb, and straightforward design. Many aircrews who later transitioned to the Mirage 2000 or F-16 carried with them lessons first learned in the cockpit of the Mirage 3. These unseen chapters of the Mirage 3's career demonstrate that it was more than a frontline fighter. It was a foundation for research, a reconnaissance workhorse, a test platform for avionics and missiles, and a design that could be reinvented to serve the needs of very different operators. This adaptability ensured that the Mirage 3 was not only a legend of its era, but also a bridge to the future of supersonic aviation, influencing designs and doctrines well into the modern jet age. By the time the Dassault Mirage 3 reached the end of its long career, it had already left an indelible mark on aviation history as one of the most successful and influential fighters of the Cold War era. Its retirement across the world was gradual, reflecting both the adaptability of the design and the varied circumstances of its many operators. The aircraft had entered service at the dawn of the 1960s and remarkably remained active in some air forces into the 21st century, a testament to the durability of its design and the foresight of its engineers. In France, the Mirage 3 began to be phased out in the late 1970s as newer designs such as the Mirage F1 and Mirage 2000 took over frontline duties. The Mirage 3 and 3R variants, which had served as multi-role strike and reconnaissance aircraft, lingered in secondary roles until the early 1980s before being fully retired. For the French Air Force, the Mirage 3 had fulfilled its mission. It had given France its first supersonic Mach 2 fighter, secured its independence in aerospace technology, and provided the foundation for subsequent Dassault aircraft. Elsewhere, the Mirage remained in frontline service for much longer. In Australia, the Mirage 3.0 was the backbone of the Royal Australian Air Force from 1964 until its replacement by the FA-18 Hornet in the 1980s. Switzerland retired its Mirage 3S in the mid-1990s after more than 3 decades of service, while South Africa and several South American nations continued to fly their Mirages into the 2000s. Pakistan kept its Mirage 3s and Mirage 5s in service through extensive modernization programs, including the ROSE upgrades, which equipped them with new avionics, radars, and weapons. As late as the 2010s, Pakistani Mirages were still operational, flying both strike and reconnaissance missions, making them among the last combat-ready delta-wing Mirages in the world. Argentina was another operator that held onto its Mirage fleet well into the 21st century. Despite aging airframes and limited resources for upgrades, Argentina's Mirage the 3EAs and Israeli-built Nesher fighters remained a key element of national defense until their final retirement in 2015. Their departure marked one of the last chapters of the Mirage 3's active combat history, closing more than 50 years of continuous service. Even after official retirements, the Mirage 3 did not vanish entirely from the skies. Private companies acquired surplus airframes, particularly in the United States, where firms such as ATAC and Draken International flew them as adversary aircraft in training exercises for NATO and US pilots. In this role, decades after their design, Mirages continued to provide value by simulating enemy fighters and offering dissimilar air combat training. Culturally, the Mirage 3's retirement solidified its place as an icon of aviation history. Preserved aircraft now stand in museums across the globe, from the Musée de l'Air et de l'Espace at Le Bourget in France to collections in Israel, Australia, Argentina, and Switzerland. Many are displayed not simply as machines, but as symbols of national defense, independence, and technological achievement. At air shows, restored examples still perform flying demonstrations, their sharp delta-wing silhouettes instantly recognizable to aviation enthusiasts. The legacy of the Mirage 3 endures in the aircraft that followed it. Its aerodynamic lessons shaped the Mirage 2000, while its multi-role philosophy influenced Dassault's later designs and the broader European fighter industry. Beyond design influence, it remains remembered as the aircraft that gave smaller nations access to world-class supersonic performance and the confidence to stand against more powerful adversaries. In the final analysis, the Dassault Mirage III was more than a fighter jet. It was a symbol of independence, versatility, and enduring relevance. Though retired from active duty, its reputation as a delta-wing legend of the jet age remains secure, etched in the history of air combat and in the memory of those who flew it. Its long career, spanning continents and decades, ensures that the Mirage 3 will always be remembered as one of the defining fighters of the 20th century. The closing legacy of the Dassault Mirage III is one of endurance, influence, and symbolism. Few aircraft of its generation combine such a broad operational record, global reach, and cultural significance. Although it was conceived in the early 1950s as a relatively simple supersonic interceptor, by the time it left service in the 21st century, it had touched nearly every aspect of jet-age air power: high-speed interception, nuclear strike, reconnaissance, close support, and international export diplomacy. For pilots, the Mirage 3 became a defining experience. Its delta wing configuration demanded skill and precision, particularly during approach and landing. Yet those who mastered it often spoke of its responsiveness, raw speed, and clean handling at supersonic velocities. In combat, it proved that a light, relatively compact fighter could challenge and defeat more powerful adversaries, as Israeli pilots demonstrated against MiG-21s in the Middle East. The confidence it gave to aircrews across nations, from France to Israel, from Australia to Pakistan, helped shape tactical doctrines that emphasized energy management, vertical maneuvering, and missile-based interception. For engineers and designers, the Mirage III demonstrated the practicality of the delta wing in operational service. At a time when many nations were experimenting with complex or unproven designs, Dassault delivered an aircraft that could be built in numbers, exported widely, and maintained under varied conditions. Its adaptability into strike and reconnaissance roles confirmed that the Delta was not a one-dimensional solution, but a versatile configuration that could form the basis for entire families of aircraft. The Mirage 5 and later Mirage 50, as well as the Israeli Nesher and Kafir, all traced their lineage back to the Mirage III's aerodynamic blueprint. For statesmen and defense planners, the Mirage III represented strategic independence. France used it as a tool of national sovereignty, ensuring that its nuclear deterrent and air defense relied on indigenous technology rather than foreign suppliers. Export customers often saw it as a way to step into the supersonic age without dependence on the United States or the Soviet Union. For smaller nations, possession of the Mirage was both a deterrent and a statement of political alignment, or in some cases, non-alignment. Culturally, the Mirage III became an icon of the Cold War jet age. Its sharp, triangular planform symbolized speed and modernity, appearing in newsreels, films, and air displays. In Israel, it became linked with survival and national defense. In Australia, it represented a leap into modern air combat. And in South America, it embodied prestige and regional power. In France, it was remembered not only as a machine, but as part of a broader narrative of national recovery and technological independence after World War II. Today, its legacy is preserved not only in museums, but also in airworthy examples flown by private operators, keeping its distinctive profile alive in the skies. Aviation historians regard it as one of the most successful second-generation fighters, with more than 400 built and over 20 nations operating the type. Its operational life, stretching from 1961 to the mid-2010s, places it among the longest-serving supersonic fighters in history. The Dassault Mirage III ultimately closed its career not with dramatic last battles, but with a quiet, steady record of service across decades. Its story is one of consistent effectiveness, adaptability, and symbolic weight. As a delta wing legend, it bridged the gap between the early experiments of the jet age and the mature multi-role fighters that followed. In doing so, it secured its place as one of the defining aircraft of the 20th century, a machine that embodied speed, independence, and the enduring power of clever, pragmatic design. By the time the Dassault Mirage III disappeared from active service, it had already secured a reputation as one of the great fighters of the Cold War, a machine that defined an era and shaped the future of military aviation. Its final years in operational use were spread across a handful of nations that had sustained the aircraft through upgrades and careful maintenance. But even as newer fighters entered service, the Mirage III remained a trusted platform. Its longevity alone placed it in a category rarely achieved by supersonic jets conceived in the 1950s. France, the birthplace of the Mirage III, had long since retired its fleet by the early 1980s, moving on to the Mirage F1 and Mirage 2000. Yet elsewhere, the aircraft continued to fly for decades more. In South America, Argentina kept its Mirages on alert until 2015, more than half a century after their first introduction. Pakistan sustained one of the largest Mirage fleets, heavily modernizing the aircraft under the ROSE program to extend their strike and reconnaissance capability into the 21st century. Austria flew its Mirage IIIs until 2005, while Chile and Brazil also maintained theirs well into the late Cold War. The endurance of the Mirage III across so many diverse environments underscored the adaptability and robustness of Dassault's design. By the end of its career, the Mirage III had served in over 20 air forces and flown in multiple regional wars. It had proven its worth in interception, ground attack, reconnaissance, and even nuclear strike roles. Its combat record, most famously with the Israeli Air Force in the 1967 and 1973 wars, ensured its place among the world's most respected fighters. Its adaptability in South Asia, Africa, and South America further demonstrated that it was not bound to the doctrine of one nation, but was capable of meeting the operational demands of many. In retirement, the Mirage III became a museum piece and an airshow performer, but also something more, a teaching tool. In the United States, private contractors acquired surplus aircraft and used them as adversary trainers, challenging modern fighters with their distinct handling and high-speed profiles. This gave the Mirage III a second life, one in which it continued to influence pilot training long after its frontline service had ended. Its legacy extended into design philosophy. The Mirage 2000 carried forward the Delta Wing heritage, while Dassault's success with the Mirage III as an export platform helped establish the company as a global aerospace leader. Many of the ideas refined in the Mirage, modular upgrades, multi-role adaptability, and aerodynamic efficiency, would become standard in later generations of fighters. Today, preserved Mirages stand in museums from Le Bourget in France to Canberra in Australia, Tel Aviv in Israel, and Buenos Aires in Argentina. Their sharp delta silhouettes remain instantly recognizable, a visual emblem of the 1960s jet age. For those who flew it, the Mirage III is remembered as demanding but reliable, unforgiving in certain regimes, but rewarding in its clarity of purpose, speed, climb, and precision interception. The Dassault Mirage III's final legacy is that of a machine which elevated France into the top tier of aviation powers and gave smaller nations a supersonic fighter capable of defending their skies with credibility. Its name, Mirage, was apt, for it appeared suddenly in the Cold War landscape, sleek, elusive, and fast, redefining expectations of what a second-generation fighter could achieve. Long after its retirement, it remains a Delta Wing legend of the jet age, remembered not only for what it accomplished in combat, but for the standard it set for versatility, independence, and endurance in military aviation.